What's up, yard freakos, and thanks for joining me on this video. So today I'm going to be talking to you about low flow sprinkler heads and me installing some in my yard, why I recommend those, as well as just some tips on checking your irrigation system to make sure you're getting proper coverage. So the first thing I would say is with irrigation systems, when you're using them for your lawn, you should be checking them at least once a month to make sure you're getting adequate coverage. So here's an example that I have. So right here, my grass had gotten so thick that it had covered over my sprinkler and the sprinkler head wasn't popping up. So I had to come in here and cut the grass out to make sure I was still getting coverage on my park lane here. Another thing you want to do is go and check your irrigation to make sure that your sprinkler heads haven't sunk into the ground and therefore aren't popping up far enough to get you the adequate coverage you need. So for example, like this one here, it sunk a little too much into the ground and it's not going up straight, it's leaning forward, so that's making me not get the good coverage I need. So that's the kind of thing you want to do. You want to come in, make sure that it's straight, that it's popping up the whole height, especially if you want to mow high like in St. Augustine or Kentucky bluegrass, and that way you aren't unnecessarily stressing your lawn by not getting adequate coverage. Another thing you should do is check to make sure that your pattern is the way you are wanting it to be set, because water pressure in neighborhoods does vary at time to time, especially in the morning when everyone's irrigating at the same time. So that's what you'd want to do. You want to come in and make sure that you're getting the full reach of your sprinkler heads to make sure you're getting adequate and overlapping coverage for your thing. So those are just some tips I have for, just making sure that your irrigation system is working properly and that you got everything that you need to keep your grass happy. So let's talk about low flow sprinkler heads. So the reason I am going to be installing some low flow sprinkler heads is because, as you can see here, I'm not really getting adequate coverage from this sprinkler and from this sprinkler for the grass. So this is a dry spot. And it's just because I bought even though the existing ones are low flow, they are just unadjustable quarter patterns, and just because of the contour of my yard, it's not they're not matching what I need. So I'm gonna be getting some that are adjustable to allow you to be able to get as much coverage as you need, in the arc to cover the spot. See, I'm also having some coverage issues over here on this part of the side yard, and it's because, as you can see, these aren't popping up high enough because of the hill that they're on, and they're soaking that part of the yard. So I have low flow hunters here, so I'm replacing this head and this head with low flow heads, and that'll be able to let them get up on to be able to cover this area and keep that wet for the grass. So I'm going to be using hunters and rainbirds today for those sprinkler heads. So let's talk about low flow sprinkler heads and why I recommend them for the typical suburban front and backyard. So they work for both types of soil types. So for either clay or for sand, and this is the reason why. So for clay, the main problem you have is that it's so compact, so to speak, that when it rains, you get a lot of surface wash off, and that can happen with sprinklers as well. And so what the low flow sprinkler heads do is it's such a low drip rate that it lets the water just gently soak into the ground instead of pooling on the surface and being wasted. With sand, you almost have the opposite problem, right? So with sand, the water just goes straight through it, right? And so that's a problem, because if you have typical sprinkler heads that apply a bunch of water at once, it just soaks through the ground and the water isn't able to utilize it. Whereas with low flow sprinkler heads, you can slowly apply that water and it'll drip into the ground, and the plants will have more time to soak the water up and keep them irrigated that way. The other thing I like about low flow sprinkler heads is that the water droplets are really big. So where I grew up in West Texas, you get 60-mile-per-hour winds all the time in the spring and fall, right when you need the water the most. for the lawn. And so, you know, if you have like an aerosol type of sprinkler system, you know, the wind would just carry the water away and the grass would just remain dry. It wouldn't even be able to hit the ground. What I like about these low flow sprinkler heads is that are putting out such a large stream of water droplets that the wind has a harder time taking that water away, and so it's reaching the ground instead of evaporating into the air. So that's another reason why I like these low flow sprinkler heads. So with that said, let's get started and get these things into the ground. See, this is another good thing that you can do for sprinklers is check the filters on the heads too, because they will get clogged up sometimes. Okay, I just finished installing the Hunter low flow sprinkler heads in my existing irrigation ones. This one's gonna be a little bit harder for the ones that I'm gonna be replacing in the other part of the yard. So I'm gonna be replacing the entire sprinkler head. They don't have interchangeable heads. So I'm gonna be using these Rainbirds here to make that happen. So let's get started.
So before you rebury your sprinkler head, make sure you turn it on to make sure that the connection to the sprinkler line is good. So that's why I'm turning it on here, to make sure there isn't any water gushing out of the bottom of the sprinkler head and you begin to flood your lawn.
All right, that just about wraps up my video on low flow sprinkler heads and irrigation systems in general. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You take it easy, have a good week, and I'll see you next time.